Creve Coeur, and certainly is, I want to make this informal, and people have questions, certainly feel free to jump in as we go. But just to kind of start off, as I mentioned, I went to KU, and basically I think I got started in city management. I really was in the business school actually when I was in undergraduate at KU. Didn't really have a real good idea about what I wanted to do. I actually happened to have a sister that was in city management. And I started kind of looking and seeing what she was getting involved in, and thought it seemed pretty interesting, get an opportunity to really kind of run an organization and have an impact in the community at the same time. So I started taking some political science classes, and that kind of steamrolled. And KU's got a graduate program in public administration, and it specializes in city management. So I had it right in my own backyard, and so I applied and kind of went from there. So after grad school, I went up to the Chicago area and started out working for two different cities for a few different periods of time. Up in the Chicago area, Highland Park, and the Roselle, which are kind of northwest suburbs of Chicago. And then I went over to Kansas City, worked as an assistant city administrator, and then I've been in Creve Coeur for about 15 years now. So it's been a long run. In fact, I don't even know if you all even knew that Missouri Baptist is in Creve Coeur, because a lot of people actually think this is town and country. So we do claim you guys, okay? Just so you know. So, I don't know how many of you, or what you all know about what a city administrator even is, okay? And I will tell you that I still, to this day, have buddies of mine from college that'll say things like, so when are you going to run for mayor? I'm like, no, I don't do that. I'm not in politics. It's not what I do. I work for the elected officials. So I'm appointed by the city council along with the mayor, and I essentially run the day-to-day operations of the city. So it's really equivalent to like a CEO of a private company, or maybe executive director of a nonprofit. So it's very similar to that. We're a fairly small organization. We've got 105 employees. We provide services like police service, public works, snow removal. We're very busy all winter. We ran out of salt a couple weeks ago. So, just so you know, you're going to have to take it easy if we get any more snow, because we have no more salt. We're plowing the roads, but we're not putting the salt down. So it's been the worst winter ever. I feel like I'm back in Chicago. Basically, so we have police, we have public works, we do developments, we do permitting, we do planning and zoning. So any development comes in has to go through the city, of course. We have parks and recreation, we have a city golf course, just a 9-hole course, and we also have an ice arena and several city parks. So it's it's a fairly multifaceted organization, 105 employees, and so it's an interesting place. Creve Coeur is, I'm going to talk a little bit more about my role in a minute, but Creve Coeur is, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the city. It's a little bit unique in that its population actually doubles during the day. So it's not like a lot of the other suburban communities that are really kind of bedroom communities where everybody, they live in the community, then they go to work in places like Clayton or St. Louis, et cetera. We have a lot of people who work in Creve Coeur. Our population actually triples during the day. Practically, it's about 45,000 during the day. It's only about 18,000 permanent population. So that actually adds a vibrancy to the community. It also provides more challenges, and we've got a lot more traffic. We have actually more crime that, as a result of the fact that you've got businesses in town and you've got a lot of people coming and going, and lots of parking lots, lots of office buildings. You've got, we don't have high crime, but certainly have more crime that's brought in by the business community. But it's certainly a trade-off that we'll take any day, because the business community brings a tax base to the city, and it also brings a vibrancy. We have like 75 restaurants in Creve Coeur, even though it's only a city of 18,000 population. We try to cultivate that vibrancy that is created by a strong business district. We're the home to Monsanto Corporation, And Monsanto, you probably heard, it's a big agricultural company, and they're located over off of Lindbergh. They've been here forever. They've got about 5,000 employees there. So that's kind of the one huge company, the very large company that we have. We also have a lot of technology companies. We've got a Danforth Plant Science Center. So it's interesting. One of the things it does, though, it really creates a lot of challenges for me, because you've got this really strong, vibrant commercial district, and then you've got pretty high-end residential. This university here is nestled in a really, really nice residential area, a lot of nice homes all the way around it. So whenever businesses are wanting to expand or looking to redevelop properties, we've got a lot of natural tension that results from those proposals from the residents that live right next door. And actually the same is true with institutions like this, colleges and universities and high schools that we have in town. And there's always tension because you got neighbors that are right there. So we have to be very good about listening to the concerns that the residents have and trying to balance their concerns with what the benefits and everything that a strong commercial district brings to the city. So we that's a real challenge for us. So one of the things that we're focusing on an ongoing basis is certainly the city's tax base and economic development. And we look at it from the standpoint of, hey, you're better off trying to try to retain the businesses that you have as opposed to bringing new businesses in. And again, keeping that business space is important to us because of the tax revenue that it generates, certainly in part. And so we're trying to do things like, hey, how can we remove barriers to development? How can we streamline our permitting processes? We don't do a lot of economic development incentives. We don't provide a lot of tax breaks because, frankly, there certainly a lot of residents aren't interested in those because they're controversial. So we're careful about that. But at the same time, Coeur is the kind of community that we don't really need to provide a lot of tax breaks to because it's pretty desirable from the standpoint of business as it is. So we focus on things like trying to streamline our permitting processes, also looking at how we can improve our roads and infrastructure because a lot of that drives commercial development and drives business. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of the different functions of the city and my role and kind of go from there. But city finances, we are the whole bedrock, of course, of the city has been able to have the money to provide the services that everybody enjoys. We've had some financial struggles like basically every city government across the country has in the last probably 10 years. And we've had to learn how to do things kind of differently and how to not just hire staff. We'll go out and we'll do outsourcing. And we'll also look at regional partnerships and other ways of providing services in order to kind of maintain the services that we have. But one of the things that, from my perspective, what I need to do from the city's financial standpoint is think long range, because the city council terms are only, the council comes and goes, and they're basically the elected officials. I'm here, and I'm kind of the, certainly in theory, I'm kind of the constant in the city. So the council members serve 2-year terms. They're elected. They may serve 2, 4, 6 years, whatever. But the role of the city administrator is to say, okay, how can we make sure we've got a long-range vision for the city? How can we make sure that we have the finances as one element to make sure that the city continues to function, not just from election cycle to election cycle, but beyond. So that's really kind of a key role of the city administrator. And along those lines too, when you talk about city finances, what is really critical is making sure that you're providing services in an even-handed fashion. And that's another really important role, is making sure that, hey, we're keeping track of the city taxpayer dollars, and they're not going to be spent on, let's say, political purposes, whereby some residents might get some services because they happen to know elected officials or that sort of thing. So the idea is that having professional management, you essentially are providing services on an equal and fair basis throughout the community, and the basis of policies and procedures and what the community need is, as opposed to politics and who you know. So that's really the basis, and I think most of the communities in St. Louis essentially function that way. They don't all. And in some communities you'll have more politics and less professionalism. So it kind of varies a little bit from city to city, but overall I think in St. Louis you find the suburbs are pretty professionally run. So that's a real key in terms of the role of the city administrator, is overseeing the city's finances and making sure that that the city has the money to write the checks to fund the services that they're looking for. And along those lines, we're always trying to, and I'm telling my finance director, hey, we need to be kind of undercovering rocks, so to speak. Looking for what are the problems, what are the threats that we have from a financial standpoint going forward. I don't know how many of you are in majors in business, but that's really important, because certainly you read in local government about about scandals and things like that. And I don't know if you saw in Dixon, Illinois, a couple of years ago, there was a finance director that I don't know how she did it, but she embezzled $50 million over 30 years. Nobody caught her for 30 years. And then finally they started wondering, hey, she's got this really lavish lifestyle, and everybody thought that she had the lavish lifestyle. She just served as a city finance director on the side. Well, she was living that lavish lifestyle because of the money that she was siphoning off of the city over a long period of time. Hard to believe you get away with $50 million over any period of time, but it finally caught up with her, and so we have to constantly be on making sure we have controls in that place, because we got good people, we've got on a staff, but there's always the possibility you've got to have controls in place to make sure that you don't set up an environment where that kind of stuff can happen. So we work on that a lot in trying to identify, hey, where could cash be siphoned off in the worst case, and that happens. It hasn't happened in Creve. We work diligently to make sure it doesn't, but it's happened in other communities not too far away, not to the magnitude of Dixon, Illinois, but there are certain areas that are high cash areas, and that's where you really have to look at. Municipal court, a lot of people come in and pay tickets with cash. We've got a recreation area, a golf course. You have a lot of people that come in and pay cash. So those are areas we have to really pay attention to and be diligent to make sure that we are keeping track of all the taxpayer dollars diligently. So I want to talk a little bit more about council, about the city council and my relationship with them. So, it's a little bit unique in that I have 9 bosses. I've got the mayor, I've got 8 city council members, and like I say, they change from time to time. So it's always a challenge to make sure, hey, they're the ones that are setting policy. They set policy, I implement. They pass ordinances, I make recommendations. I submit a budget to them, but I don't approve the budget. The city council approves the budget. So they are the leaders of the community, and they actually have the final say. And I report to them. But it's a challenge, certainly, in terms of my challenge is building relationships with those council members, building their trust, just like a CEO would need to do with a board of directors. And some of the things I try to do is certainly share all the information equally with the city council. It's very important that when you've got a board of directors, that you share the information equally. Have some feel that you're playing favorites to some, and as opposed to others. I try very hard to not surprise the city council and not show up with an item at a council meeting that they have they have no knowledge about. So that's very important. But a lot of it's just about building relationships, trying to work collaboratively with the city council, and also kind of being that crucial link between this governing body that's at the top of the organization above me and the staff that I need to work, every day toward the goals of the organization. So it's an interesting role because you're looking at, hey, you're kind of up at a higher level, 30,000 feet, with the city council on policy, but then I've got to make sure that everybody that's working for the city is on the same page and is, we're all, kind of working toward the same goals, and people that are in the front lines understand, what their role is and how it relates to the bigger picture. So it's certainly an interesting role in that regard. One of the real challenges I think we have, one of the little bit of a balancing act you have as a city administrator is, how visible are you going to be in the community? Because remember, I'm not elected, and I'm not out, trying to get credit for things. I mean, that's really what the mayor and council are there for. They're elected, so they ought to be the face of the community, so to speak. But nonetheless, I think that there is an expectation that a city administrator is going to be out in the community and be active, but it is a little bit of a fine line between how you, ribbon cuttings, for instance. I don't cut the ribbon, and that's really what the mayor's role is, and to kind of be the welcoming force to the community. But we do go out together and meet with businesses, and I do go to ribbon cuttings, but I let, he makes the speech. I tend to try to stay in the background. And you get pulled up a little bit occasionally, and that's okay. But it is very much a position in which you are going to be in the community, and you are going to be sometimes a little bit of a lightning rod, because there is no way you can make, everybody's not going to be happy. We have a development right now that the city council just approved for an assisted living development. And it's over on Lindbergh, 450 North Lindbergh. And we have about 150 residents over there that are very, very angry about it because they do not want this assisted living facility in their backyard. And the city staff reviewed the proposal and recommended some changes to it. But all in all, felt like it's really a pretty good proposal. It's in a commercially zoned area, and it does abut residential, but it's only a 2-story building. It's about 50 units. It's fairly small, and we thought it was appropriate. Well, the residents didn't. They put a petition together. They have been very upset about it. So the city staff is often a little bit of a lightning rod because we are basically trying to review everything objectively that comes into the city. We don't really have any dog in the fight other than trying to make the best recommendations to the city council, and then, hey, whatever they decide, we're going to live with. And so the Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed it. They liked the development. The council approved it, albeit a little bit narrowly. And so we still are dealing with the impacts of having residents that are upset. But again, I think what's important is we can't worry too much. We have to listen to residents, but we also can't worry too much about making people mad at us, because people are always going to be mad at us. We just want to make sure that they're mad at us for the right reasons and not the wrong reasons. So, it is an interesting position relative to the visibility in the community because it's interesting. I'll be out in Trader Joe's, and it's a kind of position where you're going to get stopped and asked a question about any time, any place. And I had a resident stop me in Trader Joe's the other day, and he said, "Oh, I bet you get stopped all the time, when you're out." And I said, "Oh, not that much." He said, "Well, really quick, I just got something I want to ask you real quick." I mean, you hate it when people do that, don't you? I said, "No, I don't mind." 20 minutes later, I think I had to go back and you know, get a new gallon of milk because my milk was warm now. So, you know, it's just, you know, you get a lot of that. I play some golf. I played on a golf course, and I'm almost getting residents all running through the golf course, and they're always offering me tips. But they're not offering me tips about how to play golf, which is what I could really use. They're offering me tips about how to run the city, and that's okay too. So there is a degree of visibility, but I think, and it's something that for me in a suburban area, I know St. Louis is a large community, and it's you have, you know, it's not the fishbowl per se, that if you're the city administrator of a small town. And there you are in a very, very visible position. So there are different degrees of visibility. I want to talk a little bit about some of the trends that we're seeing in local government. And one of the big trends that we're seeing is regionalism. You know, we've been pretty active in working with other communities, and part of it's just because we have to. And economics, finances means we need to find ways to do things a little bit more, you know, less expensive or provide services. So we've been somewhat of a leader in trying to, you know, look at opportunities to work regionally. We've done things like joint police dispatching, for instance. And also joint services agreements, which can help, you know, our residents of the community kind of extend our services a little bit. Things like, you know, residents of Maryland Heights can come and, you know, play our golf course at resident rates, and our residents can go use their facilities for resident rates. Same with, we have that with Baldwin Golf and the city of Baldwin, as well as the city of the University City as well. So trying to do things regionally to help provide additional services or save money. And that's something I think we're going to see more and more as local governments are facing increasingly, you know, difficult times. People don't like taxes. I don't blame people. And so we're trying to stretch the dollar as far as we can. And another real trend that we're seeing is certainly in transparency and the expectation and demand for information to be provided by local governments and by other governmental entities, as opposed to citizens. They don't want to have to dig for information. They want it right there, available. If they've got a development that they're concerned about in their community, they want to have an opportunity to get the information. You know, so we are always looking to see, hey, how can we get the information out there and make citizens feel a part of the process, as opposed to you know, the fighting local government. And a lot of that is also, how do we reach people of all ages? Because we actually do have a little bit of an older community, but we also are trying to more and more engage the younger community as well. So we're trying to figure out how to do that and try to use a little bit more of a multimedia approach. Everybody doesn't want to just read a newsletter that comes in, so we're trying to find, hey, how else can we reach people from a multimedia approach, be it through not only our website, but maybe through videos and that sort of thing. So.
You said you're trying to reach a younger audience. Is that like you're trying to bring a younger generation in, like moving into the Creve area, or just getting the people that are already here that are younger more involved?
I would say probably both, but on the first part, you know, because of the fact that we're mainly single family and we're large lots, and it's for a lot of, you know, people that are, say, 30 years old, not terribly affordable. But one thing we're hearing is we've got Danforth Plant Science, we've got a lot of these technology businesses that say, hey, we're hiring lots of 25-year-olds, you know, 25 and 30-year-olds now, and there's no place for them to live. You know, we got some older condos, you know, they're a little tired, so we actually approved 2 major apartment projects up on Old Olive, which is by the Creve Coeur 12 theater, and they're a little more upscale, nicer, you know, apartment complexes. So we're trying to create some environments that are, you know, for people of all ages. But part of it is also trying to get younger people involved, and that is a part of it, because, you know, if they feel a little more connected to the community, maybe they will want to stick around, and we don't just want to have a community of seniors. You know, seniors are great, you know, but we'd like to have a little bit more diverse community. So we've been trying to do some things like, we're going to have a summer concert series. Okay, we're going to start out small. We're going to have 3 concerts in Millennium Park this summer, and 1 a month, and kind of try to build upon that and try to get you know, a little bit more diverse age group. And then we're going to start a farmers market. You know, we've got that going, and that's going to be done over at Parkway Northeast Middle School on Saturday mornings. So we think that'll bring out a nice broad range of people in the community. So we are trying to reach out a little bit more to see, hey, what kind of activities would engage people in the community of all ages. So, but you know, so part of it's that, and part of it's community engagement. Part of it's the business community saying, hey, you know, we're here for people. They want to be able to live around here, but you know, you're not offering them a variety of opportunities to do so. So. Anyway, let's see. So, you know, along those lines, I talked about some of the trends, some of the issues, you know, kind of current issues we're facing. And I think this is one that I'm interested a little bit in what, you know, your all thoughts on it. I talked about we're trying to balance the development concerns with the neighborhood concerns. One of the issues that came up recently was over at Panera Bread Company. And they approached the city about wanting a drive-through restaurant over there. They wanted to basically put a drive-through on the end of Panera, St. Louis Bread Company there on New Ballas Road. And so that's kind of opened up the discussion about, you know, what do we want as a community relative to drive-through restaurants. We only have one drive-through restaurant in the whole town, and that's McDonald's. And that was grandfathered. And that, you know, it's been in town forever. Now they built a new one right next door, but they've been around forever. So they were essentially grandfathered. So now we're trying to determine, okay, you know, do we want to encourage more drive-through restaurants? Or are we, you know, right now our zoning code's set up to really kind of discourage them a little bit. You can do them, but you got to have a larger lot, about 3 acres of ground, and it's not real conducive to drive-through restaurants. So, you know, the competing discussions we've been having are, hey, you know, we're already kind of a motor-oriented community, right? We're not really walkable. We'd like to be more walkable. We'd like to create more of a pedestrian-oriented downtown. We build sidewalks. We're trying to do some of those things. But at the same time, and also we try to, you know, drive-throughs can generate more traffic, you know, as well. So at the same time, though, we also know, hey, people like the convenience of them. And we hear from people, and, you know, one group we hear from is people with kids. You know, they say, hey, instead of getting out of the car, going in a bread company, it'd be nice to have a drive-through, and I'm sure that's the case. So we're trying to determine, hey, what do we want to be in terms of community relative to, you know, drive-through restaurants is one particular issue, because it's a little bit of an appearance issue, you know, and how you view the automobile, and, you know, so I don't know. Any thoughts on that at all about drive-through restaurants and
What was your age demographic? Sorry, did someone raise their hand? What are the age demographics for Creve again?
it is older.
So it would make sense though not to really specialize in the drive-through restaurants, because you don't have families that are younger that are having to drive their kids all over the place. So right now in your community, it seems fine not to have drive-throughs, but if you're wanting to expand it to the younger community, along with the people that are late to work at Danforth or driving the kids to soccer practice, you're going to need those drive-throughs.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to expand, like you were talking about earlier, then drive-throughs would be the way to go.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe not necessarily for the friendliness that you want.
Right,
without
right.
an account.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a really good point. You know, that it's kind of some competing values there. We had a Chick-fil-A has been talking about trying to get, you know, free. And I like
You should
Chick-
do that.
I like Chick-fil-A, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how, it's a chicken sandwich, but it's pretty good. And, and they want to drive through. If they come in, they want to drive through.
Well, for like personally, because I live in St. Louis County, unincorporated, but I live like right next door to Creve, just on a cutoff line, and so like living here my whole life, like I actually, as I've seen it change throughout the years, I actually would be more for this walking city type, just because like that's where it seems like it's going. There's a lot of the store, a lot of them like by the Deerbergs complex on the more east of McDonald's, where you're talking about your grandfather in. It's more it was pushed up to the front more by the sidewalk. The parking's more on the side. It looks like that's where it's going, and I kind of like that. I like to be able to like kind of walk to all the stores, walk around. I mean, I personally just like that, just because like it's great for convenience, but also like from a health standpoint, just now you're not getting out of your car just to go through a drive-through. I know it's less convenient, or it's more inconvenient, but like health-wise, get out of your car. It's okay. Get your kids moving, like, and you're also making it conducive. Like that's the thing, drive-through, just sit down constantly. So I mean, that's like my view on it for health, as well as like just living here too.
I think that's a good point. I go up to Starbucks now and then. I don't drink coffee, I drink tea, but my kids like coffee, so I'll go buy them coffee once in a while. And that place, to me, it's one of the few places in Creve, Coeur where it's actually kind of, it has kind of a nice feel to it. I mean, it's pedestrian, little, you got patio outside, if winter ever ends, you can sit outside, and if you have, and they want to drive through so bad, And if you put a drive-through there, I mean, that's just going to be like this all day long, And it kind of, it takes away a little bit of the character. But I think at the same time, you do have to be cognizant of, who your community is and what you're trying to create. We've really, for a long time, wanted to create a kind of a downtown, like a mini downtown that, nothing as big as Clayton, a little more high-rise, Kirkwood, which is really low-rise, which is really nice, somewhere in between. We've got a plan and, to do that, but, real issue for us, and we want to make it pedestrian-oriented. The barriers to that is that, all the land is basically private property. It's all owned by individuals, and there's a lot of financing and money involved to create that kind of an environment. But that is the kind of environment that we would like to create. So when we have new developments come in, and an example of the King's Landing apartments, which you might see over on New Ballas across from the Hive, which you never all been to the Hive probably, but it's a hub, and there is the King's Landing is a development that sits right up on the street, and those are the kind of developments that we're trying to. I mean, it's not perfect, okay? It's not exactly what we would say. Hey, that's exactly what we want, but it's development right up on the street. It's mixed use. You've got retail on the first floor, and then you've got apartments above. So we're trying to create those kinds of environments going forward, but it's difficult, because there's a lot of people involved, and the city can kind of try to create the environment, but we can't really make it happen per se.
Would you be like leaning more towards like metered parking? Because like also in that area, that one isn't metered parking or anything, but it has that side strip part for the retail stores underneath.
Yeah.
So like I don't know,
well, I would say you'd be looking more at structured parking. You'd be looking more at parking garages. Okay, would be more likely. Now, whether or not you could charge for that parking, hey, that would be a great problem to have. If we can get to the point where we could charge for parking, But right now in Creve, Coeur, people expect parking to be free, and they want to park right in front of Pasta House or First Watch or, wherever they go. So, anyway, so that's a big challenge for us. And, it's an interesting issue. It's kind of a topical issue right now with drive-through restaurants, but we're continuing to look at that. And I think, if you kind of watch our local news, over the next few weeks, months, you'll be hearing more about that particular issue. We're also starting to look at our government center facility for maybe doing renovations to it. And, you know, it's the kind of thing where I think it's an interesting issue because when you get into making improvements, you make, you know, brand new facilities, new city halls or renovated, it's going to be a very politically dicey issue because people don't want you spending money necessarily to build monuments, you know, to, some perceive it as building monuments to politicians or, you know, for myself to say, hey, look at this great new, you know, building that the city has. So we want to be careful about that, but at the same time, you do need to have facilities that are conducive to providing good services so that when people come to the community, you know, we can provide the services that they're interested in. Let's stop here for a minute. Do you all have any questions at all about, you know, my role or about you know, the city or anything else that I could?
What's the city's thoughts on the possibility of a merger between the St. Louis city and the county? The city, is it going to be affected by that? Have they thought any in the future?
That's a great question, and we are watching that really closely. And you know, there's different thoughts out there. One is that there would be the St. Louis city would become a city within the county. Okay, and it would just be another city within the county, but then the county would do county services, and the city could just do city services. And that's different than an actual merger, whereby the county government and the city become one government. And my feeling is that I would like to see St. Louis City become a city within the county, and then they can get the benefit of shared services and things like that. But I'm concerned a little bit myself about having a merger between the two. And that's, you know, for a lot of reasons, and one that I think it could potentially be a little bit of a big burden on St. Louis County, okay, with you look at the economics and the cost of providing services. So I think that what might make more sense would be the city to come into the county, and they would realize some savings, and I think could provide better services themselves. But yeah, there was I saw Baldwin took a position on it, I saw on the Post today, in opposition to a merger. We haven't taken any position on it as a city, but we are certainly watching it closely because we are concerned. You know, an issue for us too is for Creve Coeur, we got a lot of unincorporated area north of us. You know, north of Olive, essentially between us and Maryland Heights. And there's been talk recently about a major development up in that area, just off of Olive and 270. That would be like you know, Walmart and Lowe's and, you know, Home Depot and everything else, you know, big retail stores you can think of. And so it would be outside of Creve Coeur. So, you know, we're watching that carefully because it could be a real double whammy for us, whereby we don't get any of the tax revenue from that development, and we get all the traffic, you know, from it and all the negative impacts. So we do have to kind of keep an eye out on, you know, from the standpoint of, hey, regionally, there's things that can impact us. So, what other questions?
You said this summer, like, you're gonna do a whole lot, like, the concerts and a whole bunch of other activities trying to get the younger crowd involved. So does that mean you also have staff of, like, internships for college students to see their views on it too?
You know, we actually do have some internships. We generally had maybe an intern in usually 2 or 3 in different departments, like parks and recreation, for instance, and also either in my office or in you know, a planning division. I talk about some of these development projects that come through. So yeah, we do have some opportunities, you know, in the summertime. And we also have some opportunities for some, you know, summer work as well through our golf course and concessions and ice arena and programs like that. We also have some opportunities for volunteers, because a lot of these things are going to, you know, take some legwork of citizens, you know, getting out there and, you know, and helping kind of put these concerts on and those kinds of things. So Yeah, no, and we'd love if there was anybody that was interested in doing any of those things, you know, to get in touch with me. We'd love to get people involved in some capacity.
So if I remember correctly, Creve stands for Broken Heart. I kind of remember the story, but do you know the story behind the name of the naming Creve?
Yes. So Creve, you're right. It's French for broken heart, and the legend is that so you got Creve Lake, which is, by the way, the largest natural body of water in the state of Missouri. Okay. And I hate to tell you, but it's actually not even in the city of Creve. It's in Maryland Heights.
Yeah.
It's unincorporated forever, but that's where Creve kind of started, and these French settlers there. But what the story is that you had this lake there, and then there was an Indian princess whose heart was broken by lost love, and she jumped in the lake because she was so distraught, and the lake formed in the shape of a broken heart. Okay, so that's the legend behind it. No, we can't talk about that. So yeah, that's the legend. It's a real uplifting story.
Come to our city.
Yeah, we actually, I will say it was kind of funny because USA Today has this weekend edition, and a few years ago they voted, and this stuff was totally unscientific, but they voted Creve one of the 5 best places to retire. Okay? And I go, really? I saw this article, I go, I gotta read this. And it said, you know, it's a great place, blah, blah, blah. And it's got this wonderful 1,000-acre lake. Okay, yeah, it's actually not in Creve. But my mayor, who is since retired, but he was an octogenarian, so he was, you know, certainly retirement age. He really grabbed onto that. So he would always like to quote, you know, we are a top 5 place to retire. And we just kind of leave out the part of Creve Lake not being in the city. So that was one of our recent claims we found. I know you guys are kind of limited on time. I don't want to keep you too long. Is there any other questions or anything else? I'm going to leave you just, these are little cards that tell just a real snapshot about Creve and some of the assets that we have, and it's also got on it my name's not on it, but my city administrator's office phone number is, in case, you know, anybody had any follow-up questions or projects or anything like that, or you know, please feel free to get in touch with me. So I'm going to hand these out. If you want to pass them around.
Can I sell you guys some business cards? Can we get some of those too?
You know, let's see. I do have a few. Yes. I do have a few. Sometimes I pull out business cards of other people out of my pocket.
Well, that's convenient to somebody you don't want. Like,
Exactly.
I have another question.
Yeah, if anybody would like to take a business card.
Chemistry.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You said that OGAP is technically a part of Creve, but everyone says it's town husband. Why? Like, is the city lying in between Akitas, or?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I don't really know why the lines are where they are. I mean, there's a lot of history in that. But yeah, our line, basically, CBC is town and country. Okay. You're in Creve here, and then the temple is in town and country. Okay. So it's a little confusing.
So the line is literally like right there?
Yeah, but now if you go to Conway, we've got everything up on Conway. So it really kind of 40 in the outer road is a little bit, it gets a little confusing.
Okay, just wondering, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so